In fact, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Natyshak.
Premier, thank you for your testimony
Pleasure.
thus far. I'd like to talk about perception. The general public out there obviously have had a long time to digest what's happened here at Queen's Park in relation to the cancellation of the Oakville and Mississauga gas plants. I want to see if you agree with what I'm hearing and what we're all hearing in terms of how people perceive what's happened. They see that the Liberal government commissioned 2 gas plants in Oakville and Mississauga in unpopular locations. They see that public opposition to these gas plants reaches a fever pitch right around the election timing of the campaign. They see that a politically motivated, your words, announcement to cancel these plants was made.
I didn't say politically motivated. I said it was a political decision.
It was a political decision.
Made by politicians.
We're talking perception. So
Yep.
they, you know, they hear that.
Yep.
Just in the nick of time, minutes before Election Day. They see that there were no thoughts through that decision that as to the costs associated with the gas plant cancellation. No thoughts of the overall costs at that very moment. And they also see that since that time, opposition members have struggled to get concrete answers from the government related to costs and documents that are associated. Would you agree with that perception that I feel is palpable within the general public?
Well, yeah, I'm not going to contradict what you think the perception is, but I would add something.
Do you agree?
I agree that there are aspects of that may be embedded in people's minds, and I think it speaks to that kind of characterization, speaks to the frustration that certainly I feel, my government feels, and certainly the opposition feels. But on top of that, I think that a troublesome piece of perception is that it's been very difficult for the politicians, government or otherwise, to get concrete answers. And that is a real problem from my perspective.
I can
and
attest to
I've
that.
been in a situation trying to provide concrete answers and concrete information, and it's very difficult given that the numbers keep changing. And I think we've had experts explain why the numbers keep changing. And it's not that it's not that I am second-guessing expert, but it is very frustrating not to be able to get more concrete answers.
We
so
feel
when
that frustration,
yes,
Premier. Thank
absolutely.
you. Can you tell us what your role was as a campaign co-chair? What does that mean? What do they do?
So, Vice Chair.
Okay.
Okay. And what I said earlier today was that my role in the campaign was to be out in the field, to be in ridings. I was doing fundraisers in some parts of the province and unheld ridings. I was working with candidates. I was doing some media in some of the smaller media markets to talk about our campaign.
Would you also be privy to strategic policy development?
Not on a day-to-day basis.
But you would have.
So I was in the higher level discussions around policy, but I was not involved once the campaign started, because there were meetings leading up to the campaign that the campaign committee held, and I was part of those meetings. But those were quite large meetings. The day-to-day implementation, as we were in the campaign, I was not part of those.
Did you discuss, as campaign vice chair, the situations in Oakville and Mississauga as it related to the gas plants? No. Did you discuss specific polling numbers related to those 5 ridings that surrounded?
No.
You didn't?
I did not.
Did you discuss whether those were winnable ridings as an assessment, of the overall fortunes of the Liberal Party at that time?
Quite honestly, I was not part of those kinds of discussions. I wasn't, we had general discussions about general polling and the direction that the government was going and the policies that we had in place, but the riding by riding strategy, I was not part of that discussion. Were
you aware that up until the point your party's announcement was made that the gas plants were a source of consternation for your candidates? Were you aware that they were feeling the amount of pressure that we know obviously existed? I knew
generally that they were an issue, Mr. Natyshak, but I was not engaged in the day-to-day impact of those decisions on the candidates. I've since become aware, obviously.
Okay, there came a point where the campaign promise, it became a promise, right?
On the part of all 3 parties, as I understand.
Well, we'll get to that. Yeah. You were also monitoring all the other party leaders at that time as campaign vice chair.
Right.
You would have known what they were talking about on various issues. I'll read you a quote, Premier, and we'll see if you can recollect. It's from the Canadian Press, October the 5th, 2011. Andrew Horvath, quote, "Last-minute promises like that," in reference to the gas plant cancellation, "people have to decide whether they're credible or they're not. Now Mr. Hudak's making the same claim. We don't know what that's going to cost. I think what both these guys need to do is be really upfront with the public about what the cost of canceling these deals is going to be."
Yeah.
So you would
fair enough, fair enough. But the reality is that would have been impossible.
Do you remember seeing that from
I don't remember seeing that, but
you're aware that she addressed that these were unknown costs, and
I don't remember her specific language around this issue. Okay. I'll just be honest with you. I don't remember that. But
Premier,
it's completely consistent with what your leader has said since then. But it would have been impossible. We know now.
It's inconsistent with what your party has said in terms of what our position was. We would not have canceled gas plants, not knowing what the full costing would have been.
Well,
I need to ask you about the policy during the election, because those are promises, and people expect to see them fully nuanced and costed out. Was the Liberal Party platform fully costed during the election?
Okay, I'm just going to say my understanding is that your candidates were clear that you would cancel the gas plant. I think you've had testimony at this committee that said that there was an understanding that the gas plants would have been canceled. So that is my understanding. And what was your other?
Our leadership. Okay, so
Sorry.
So was the campaign fully costed out? Your platform?
Yes. But if you're going to ask me for the specifics, I'll have to get back to you.
No, I'm not going to ask you for the specifics. I'm going to ask you at the point at which the promise, which then became a campaign platform issue, was made.
No, obviously.
Was that ever? Did you refine the platform? Did you address?
I mean, I think it's
cost?
clear. It's clear from what has transpired that yes, the platform would have been was costed. But the reality is that it would have been impossible for us to estimate exactly what the cost of the cancellation would be.
To the perception,
we've been clear about that.
Premier, back to the perception that the people of this province see a party and its leadership, whether they be campaign co-chairs or I apologize, campaign vice chairs or the then Premier and various ministers, recklessly make a promise without any knowledge of the ramifications, without any knowledge of the cost. And my question to you is that, do you think that that's what leadership means, is to go about a direction of the government, or whether it's through a campaign, without fully knowing the cost to the public?
Well, I think the reality is that in a situation like this, a major infrastructure project, if the decision is made that it's not going to go forward, there will be a cost attached to it. And given that everyone, and I understand your position, that you were in a different position in terms of the initial decision, but the reality is all the parties had said that they were going to cancel the gas plant. So if that is
Premier,
the case, then there will be a cost associated with that, and it would have been impossible for anyone to know exactly what the cost of that would be.
You just acknowledged that you monitored media during the campaign, and I read you a quote from October the 5th, 2011, that our leader indicated that she would not recklessly cancel any contract that didn't have costs associated.
But you have
to it.
We've had there's been testimony at this.
Would you say that that was a prudent position, prudent direction at that time?
There has been testimony at this committee that all parties undertook that they would cancel the gas plant. So the reality is there was going to be a cost associated with that, and no one could have known what that cost would be.
I contest that it's here in black and white that our leader, at that very moment, stated categorically that she would not cancel.
But there has been testimony at this committee. I'm quite clear. There's been testimony.
You're getting it from the leader. And I guess my question is back to leadership. Is that the type of leadership that we can expect going forward? Is that there will be occasions? You talked about the fact that there will be other cancellations, whether they be in energy or otherwise. Can we expect continuation of recklessly canceling contracts without knowing the full cost?
I've said clearly that we need a better process going forward. And when I said there may be other situations like this, I'm talking about over the next 50 years. There may be decisions that government has to reverse, and we need a better
Thank you,
process
Mr.
going
Natyshak.
forward.